The millionaire discovers that his daughter is playing with a girl who lives on the streets and, touched by their pure friendship, decides to adopt her. But the girl's biological mother, who he didn't know existed, reappears. The shrill sound of the doorbell echoed through the Ashworth mansion, snapping Maxwell out of his gloomy thoughts. With a resigned sigh, he rose from his leather armchair, setting aside his half-empty glass of whiskey. His footsteps echoed through the empty corridors, reminding him once again of the loneliness that had surrounded him since Eleanor's death. Opening the heavy oak door, Maxwell was confronted by a bright-eyed young woman with a nervous smile. "Good afternoon, Mr. Ashworth. I'm Olivia Pearson, the new housekeeper." Her words barely registered in his mind. Maxwell's gaze was fixed on the delicate sapphire necklace that adorned the newcomer's neck, a necklace he knew very well, the necklace he had given Eleanor on their wedding day. "Where did you get that?" His voice came out as a low growl, surprising even himself with the intensity of his reaction. Olivia instinctively reached for the necklace, her eyes widening in confusion. "Excuse me?" "The necklace," Maxwell pointed out, his voice quivering with restrained emotion. "How did you get it?" The young woman took a step back, clearly alarmed by the sudden change in her new employer's behavior. I don't understand. This necklace was a gift." "A gift?" Maxwell repeated, incredulous. "From whom?" Olivia hesitated, her fingers caressing the precious stones as if seeking comfort. It was a lady I met a few months ago. She said she was a friend of my mother's." Maxwell felt his blood run cold in his veins. Eleanor had no close friends, at least none that he knew of. Who could have given his dead wife's necklace to this unknown young woman? "Come in," he said abruptly, opening the door wider. "We have a lot to talk about." Olivia entered hesitantly, her gaze wandering around the opulent entrance hall. Maxwell led her into the office, his mind buzzing with questions. "Have a seat," he ordered, indicating a leather chair in front of his massive desk. Maxwell positioned himself on the other side, his eyes never leaving the necklace. "Now, I want you to tell me all about how you got that necklace." Olivia swallowed, clearly nervous. "Mr. Ashworth, I really don't understand what's going on. This necklace was a gift from a kind lady I met in a cafe in Boston about 3 months ago. She said she knew my mother and wanted to give me something special." "And you just accepted a valuable necklace from a stranger?" Maxwell asked, his voice laden with skepticism. I tried to refuse," Olivia explained, her voice trembling slightly. "But she insisted. She said it was important that I had it. That one day I would understand why." Maxwell leaned back in his chair, his mind spinning. What was this game? Who was this mysterious woman, and why would she give Eleanor's necklace to a stranger? "Miss Pearson," he said slowly, "that necklace belonged to my late wife, Eleanor. I gave it to her on our wedding day." Olivia's eyes widened in shock. "Oh my God," she whispered, her hands flying to the clasp of the necklace. "I had no idea. Please take it back." "I never—" Maxwell held up a hand, interrupting her. "No, keep it for now. Something tells me there's more to this story than we can see." He stood up, walking over to the window overlooking the estate's immaculate gardens. The afternoon sun cast long shadows over the lawn, creating a play of light and dark that seemed to mirror the mystery that now surrounded them. "Miss Pearson, I hired you as a housekeeper, but now I see that your role here could be much more significant," Maxwell said, turning to face her. "We need to uncover the truth behind that necklace, and for that, we'll need to work together." Olivia nodded slowly, her eyes meeting his with a mixture of apprehension and determination. "I'll do whatever it takes to help, Mr. Ashworth. I promise." Maxwell felt something inside him stir, a spark of something he hadn't felt for a long time. Interest. Hope. He wasn't sure, but for the first time in months, the mansion didn't seem so empty. "Well," he said, a small smile forming on his lips. "It seems we have a mystery to solve, Miss Pearson. Welcome to Ashworth Manor." As the sun slowly set over the horizon, casting golden hues through the office windows, Maxwell and Olivia began to unravel the threads of a mystery that promised to change their lives forever. The sapphire necklace glowed softly around Olivia's neck, a constant reminder of the enigma that bound them together and the secrets that were yet to come. The days that followed Olivia's arrival at Ashworth Manor were a whirlwind of emotions and discoveries. Maxwell, driven by a curiosity he hadn't felt for years, plunged headlong into investigating the mysterious necklace. One sunny morning, as they walked through the estate's extensive gardens, Maxwell decided to share more about his past with Olivia. "Eleanor and I met at college," he began, his voice laden with nostalgia. "She was bright, full of life. We had big plans for the future." Olivia listened intently, her eyes fixed on Maxwell's profile. "What happened to her?" she asked softly. Maxwell stopped in front of a majestic oak tree, his hands touching the rough bark as if seeking strength. "Cancer," he replied, the word heavy in the morning air. It was quick and relentless. In a matter of months, she was gone. A heavy silence fell over them, broken only by the distant chirping of birds. Olivia, driven by an impulse she couldn't explain, placed her hand on Maxwell's. "I'm so sorry," she murmured. "It must have been devastating." Maxwell looked down at their joined hands, an unexpected warmth spreading through his chest. "It was," he admitted. "But now, with this mystery of the necklace, it's like a part of her has come back to me." They continued walking, the conversation flowing more easily. Maxwell told Olivia about the happy years with Eleanor, the trips they had taken, the dreams they had shared. And the more he talked, the more Olivia felt connected to this story, to this man she barely knew, but who already occupied a significant space in her thoughts. Back at the mansion, they settled into Maxwell's study, determined to unravel the mystery of the necklace. Olivia brought in a tray of tea and cookies, a gesture that didn't go unnoticed by Maxwell. "You said you met the woman who gave you the necklace in Boston," Maxwell began, picking up a cup of tea. "Can you give me more details about that meeting?" Olivia frowned, concentrating. "It was at the Café Luminous, near the public garden. I was there studying for a job interview when she approached me." "What was she like?" Maxwell pressed, leaning forward in his chair. "Older, maybe in her 60s. Gray hair, piercing blue eyes. There was something familiar about her, although I'm sure I'd never seen her before." Maxwell nodded slowly, his mind working furiously. "And did she mention your mother's name?" Olivia hesitated. "No. Actually, she just said she was an old friend. Now that I think about it, it was strange that she didn't mention any names." "Very strange," Maxwell agreed, his gaze turning to the window. "Olivia, I think we need to go to Boston. Maybe we can find more clues in the cafe." The suggestion took Olivia by surprise. "Go to Boston, but what about my job here? I've only just started." Maxwell turned to her, a determined glint in his eyes. "Your job, Ms. Pearson, is to help unravel this mystery. Consider it part of your duties." Olivia felt a shiver of excitement run down her spine. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow morning," Maxwell replied, a small smile forming on his lips. "Get ready for an adventure, Miss Pearson." That night, Olivia could hardly sleep. Lying on her bed in the mansion's guest room, she twirled the necklace between her fingers, watching as the sapphires caught the moonlight coming through the window. Who was this mysterious woman? Why had she given Eleanor's necklace to Olivia? And why did Olivia feel that her life was about to change drastically? Across the hall, Maxwell was also awake, his thoughts a whirlwind of unanswered questions. He couldn't deny the connection he was feeling with Olivia, a connection that went beyond the mystery they were trying to solve. There was something about her, a light that was beginning to dispel the shadows that had inhabited his heart for so long. The next morning, as the sun rose over the Ashworth estate, Maxwell and Olivia set off for Boston, leaving behind the safety of the mansion and embarking on a journey that promised to reveal long-buried secrets. The sapphire necklace, safely tucked away in Olivia's handbag, seemed to pulse with an energy of its own, as if it knew it was about to reveal its true story. As the car slid down the road, Maxwell glanced at Olivia. She was staring out of the window, her profile illuminated by the golden morning light. For a moment, he saw a glimpse of Eleanor in her, not in appearance, but in spirit. the same curiosity, the same determination. "Are you ready for this?" he asked softly. Olivia turned to him, a brave smile on her lips. "More than ready, Mr. Ashworth." And so, with the past tugging at them and the future calling them, Maxwell and Olivia headed off into the unknown, united by a necklace, a mystery, and a connection that neither of them yet fully understood. Café Luminous was exactly as Olivia remembered it, cozy, with the scent of fresh coffee permeating the air and the soft murmur of conversation in the background. Maxwell and she chose a table near the window, the same one where Olivia had been sitting when the mysterious woman had approached her months ago. "It was here," Olivia said, her fingers absent-mindedly tracing the pattern of the tablecloth. "I was revising my CV when she approached." Maxwell nodded, his eyes scanning the cafe as if he expected to see the mysterious woman appear at any moment. "And you're sure you've never seen her before?" Olivia hesitated. I don't know. There was something familiar about her, but I can't explain what." While they were talking, a waitress approached to take their orders. Maxwell noticed the name tag, Lily, and had an idea. "Sorry, Lily," he began, his tone casual but his eyes intense. "My friend here met an older lady in this cafe a few months ago, gray hair, blue eyes. Do you happen to remember anyone like that?" Lily frowned thoughtfully. Wait. Yes. I remember. She came here often for a while. She'd always order jasmine tea and stare out of the window for hours. She seemed sad, you know?" Maxwell and Olivia exchanged surprised glances. "Do you know her name?" Olivia asked, barely able to contain her excitement. "Margaret, I think," Lily replied, "but I'm not sure of her last name. Maybe Winters." "Yes, Margaret Winters." Maxwell felt his heart race. Winters. Eleanor's maiden name was Winters. Could it be a coincidence? Thanking Lily, they placed their orders and waited for her to walk away before discussing this new information. "Maxwell," Olivia whispered, leaning across the table. "Do you think this Margaret might be related to Eleanor?" "It's possible," he replied, his mind working furiously. "Eleanor never talked much about her family. I knew she had an aunt, but I never met her." As they sipped their coffees, Maxwell and Olivia discussed their next course of action. They decided to visit the local registry office to see if they could find out more about Margaret Winters. The rest of the day was a roller coaster of emotions. At the registry office, they discovered that Margaret Winters was, in fact, Eleanor's aunt. Even more surprisingly, she had died just 2 weeks after meeting Olivia in the cafe. "That doesn't make sense," Maxwell muttered as they left the registry office. "Why would Eleanor's aunt, who I've never met, give her necklace to you?" Olivia shook her head, equally perplexed. "And why did she say she knew my mother? My mother never mentioned knowing anyone called Margaret." Night fell over Boston when they finally returned to the hotel. Exhausted, but with their minds buzzing with questions, they decided to have dinner in the hotel restaurant. Sitting by candlelight, with the city sparkling beyond the windows, Maxwell and Olivia found themselves talking not only about the mystery, but about their lives, their dreams, their hopes. "You know," Maxwell said, his gaze softening as he watched Olivia, "despite the strange circumstances, I'm glad this mystery brought us together." Olivia felt her heart race. "Me too," she admitted softly. "I never imagined that my new job as a housekeeper would take me on an adventure like this." There was a moment of charged silence, their gazes meeting across the table. Maxwell felt a wave of guilt hit him. Here he was, feeling drawn to this intriguing young woman, while they were investigating a mystery linked to his late wife. Olivia, noticing the change in his countenance, gently touched his hand. "Maxwell, is everything all right?" He sighed deeply. "Olivia, this is all so complicated. Part of me feels guilty for being here. He hesitated, unable to put into words the conflicting feelings in his heart. "I understand," Olivia said softly. "But I think Eleanor would like you to be happy, to live. And I'm sure she wants us to find out the truth behind this mystery." Maxwell nodded slowly, feeling a weight leave his shoulders. You're right, and I promise we'll get to the bottom of it, together. That night, in their separate bedrooms, both Maxwell and Olivia lay awake for hours, going over the day's events and contemplating the uncertain future that awaited them. Maxwell looked at the photo of Eleanor on his bedside table. "What are you trying to tell me, darling?" he whispered to the smiling image of his late wife. Across the hall, Olivia held the sapphire necklace, watching as it sparkled in the moonlight. She couldn't deny the feelings that were growing for Maxwell, but she also knew that the road ahead was full of complications. As the night progressed, they both finally fell into a restless sleep, their dreams populated by mysterious women, glittering necklaces and long-buried secrets waiting to be revealed. The next morning, they woke up determined to continue their quest. The next step, visiting Margaret Winter's last known residence. Little did they know that what they would find there would change the course of their lives forever. The cab pulled up in front of a Victorian house on Beacon Hill, its dusty windows and peeling paint telling the story of years of neglect. Maxwell and Olivia exchanged apprehensive glances before climbing the creaky porch steps. "Margaret Winter's last known residence," Maxwell murmured, his finger hovering over the doorbell. "Are you ready for this?" Olivia nodded, nervously adjusting the sapphire necklace around her neck. "As ready as I can be." The sound of the doorbell echoed through the house, but no one answered. After several attempts, Maxwell decided to go around the property. "Look," Olivia whispered, pointing to a partially open back window. "Do you think we should—" Maxwell hesitated for a moment, his sense of ethics fighting against the need for answers. Finally, with a resigned sigh, he nodded. "We can't go back empty-handed. Let's go." Carefully, they sneaked through the window into a dusty kitchen. The air was heavy with the smell of mold and abandonment. "Did Margaret live here alone?" Olivia asked, her voice a reverent whisper. Maxwell nodded. "From what we found out, yes. She was quite reclusive in recent years." They moved slowly through the house, each room revealing layers of a solitary life. In the living room, an entire wall was covered in photographs. Maxwell approached, his eyes widening in surprise. "Olivia, come and see this," he called, his voice trembling. The photos told the story of 3 generations: Margaret, her sister, Eleanor's mother, and Eleanor herself at various stages of her life. But what caught Maxwell's eye was one photo in particular, Margaret, much younger, next to a woman who was unmistakably Olivia's mother. That's impossible," Olivia stammered, her fingers tracing her mother's face in the photograph. "How did they know each other?" Before Maxwell could answer, a noise from upstairs startled them. Exchanging alarmed glances, they climbed the stairs cautiously. In the master bedroom, they found the source of the noise, an open window rattling in the wind. But it was what they saw on the desk that made their hearts race. A diary, opened at the last entry, in Margaret's shaky handwriting. "I gave the necklace to the girl today. She doesn't know it, but it's the key to everything. Eleanor would understand. The secret dies with me, but the truth will live on through her. May God forgive me for what I've done." Maxwell read the words aloud, his voice breaking on the last sentence. Olivia, feeling her legs weaken, sat down on the edge of the bed. "What secret?" she whispered. "And why am I the key?" Maxwell flipped through the previous pages of the diary, his eyes catching fragments of a story that was beginning to form. Mentions of a forbidden love, of a child given up for adoption, of years of regret and guilt. "Olivia," he said slowly, connecting the dots in his mind. "I don't think Margaret was just Eleanor's aunt. I think she was my grandmother," Olivia added, the realization hitting her like a bolt of lightning. "But that would mean you and Eleanor were cousins," Maxwell concluded, sitting down next to her on the bed, the diary heavy in his hands. The silence that followed was deafening. Years of secrets, lies, and coincidences converging at that moment. Olivia stood up abruptly, walking over to the window. Her mind was spinning with the implications of this revelation. Why didn't anyone tell me? Why didn't my mother ever mention it? Maxwell joined her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. Maybe she didn't know either. The diary mentions an adoption. It's possible that your mother never knew your true origins. Olivia turned to him, tears shining in her eyes. And the necklace? Why did Margaret give it to me? Maxwell looked at the necklace around Olivia's neck, the sapphires sparkling in the light of the setting sun coming through the window. Maybe she wanted the truth to come out, for you to find out who you really are. At that moment, looking into each other's eyes, Maxwell and Olivia felt an even deeper connection. They were no longer just two strangers united by a mystery, but two people whose lives were intrinsically intertwined by a shared past. Impulsively, Maxwell leaned forward, his lips meeting Olivia's in a soft, hesitant kiss. For a brief moment, the world around them disappeared, and all that existed was that connection. When they broke apart, they were both panting, a mixture of emotions, surprise, guilt, desire, reflected in their gazes. "I'm sorry," Maxwell mumbled, taking a step back. "I shouldn't have—" Olivia shook her head, a small smile forming on her lips. "Don't apologize. I think we both needed that." The sound of a door slamming downstairs brought them back to reality. Someone had entered the house. "Hurry," Maxwell whispered, picking up the diary. "We have to get out of here." Silently, they sneaked down the hallway and down the back stairs, their hearts pounding furiously. As they ran through the garden towards the street, Olivia couldn't help thinking that they were fleeing not only an unknown intruder, but also the revelations that threatened to change their lives forever. Back at the hotel, exhausted and emotionally drained, Maxwell and Olivia sat down to examine the diary in more detail. The yellowed pages contained decades of secrets, and each revelation left them more perplexed. "We need to get back to the mansion," Maxwell decided, closing the diary. "There are more pieces of this puzzle there, I'm sure." Olivia nodded, unconsciously touching the necklace. "So, what do we do with all this information?" Maxwell looked her in the eye, his determination evident. "We find out the truth, Olivia. All of it. No matter where it takes us." As they prepared for bed, each in their own room, they both knew that nothing would be the same after this trip. The mystery of the necklace had turned into something much bigger, a web of family secrets that threatened to unravel everything they thought they knew about themselves in the past. And at the center of it all, an unexpected love was blossoming, complicated by history but undeniable in its intensity. The drive back to Ashworth Manor was silent, each kilometer filled with unasked questions and unexpressed emotions. Maxwell kept his eyes fixed on the road, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Olivia, meanwhile, was distractedly leafing through Margaret's diary, her gaze occasionally straying to Maxwell's tense profile. When they finally reached the estate, the sun was already setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The mansion, which had once seemed imposing and a little intimidating to Olivia, now emanated an aura of mystery and promise. "Welcome back," Maxwell murmured, opening the door for her. The soft touch of his hand on Olivia's back sent shivers down her spine, a vivid reminder of the kiss they had shared at Margaret's house. Once inside, the familiarity of the mansion had enveloped them, but now everything seemed different, as if the newly discovered secrets had altered the very fabric of the place. "Where do we start?" Olivia asked, her voice echoing in the entrance hall. Maxwell thought for a moment. "Eleanor's office. There's a box of her mementos that I've never had the courage to open. Maybe now is the time." They walked up the stairs together, their steps synchronized, as if guided by an invisible force. Eleanor's office was exactly as she had left it, books piled on the desk, a long-forgotten cup of tea, a cashmere thrown casually over the chair. Maxwell hesitated in the doorway, his emotions visible on his face. Olivia, sensing his hesitation, entwined her fingers in his. "I'm here with you," she whispered. With a grateful nod, Maxwell entered the room and went to a cupboard in the corner. From there, he pulled out an ornate wooden box. "Eleanor always said that this box contained her most precious treasures," he explained, placing it on the table. "But I was never able to open it after she was gone." With trembling hands, Maxwell lifted the lid, Inside was an eclectic collection of items, yellowed letters, old photographs, small trinkets, and, on top of it all, a sealed envelope with Maxwell's name written in Eleanor's elegant handwriting. "She left you a letter," Olivia said softly. Maxwell took the envelope, his gaze meeting Olivia's. "Do you mind if I—" She shook her head. "Of course not. I'll have a look at the other things in the meantime." As Maxwell moved away to read the letter in privacy, Olivia began to examine the contents of the box. Among the photographs, she found one that made her gasp. It was a picture of Eleanor, probably in her early 20s, standing next to a young woman who was unmistakably Olivia's mother. "Maxwell," she called out, her voice shaking, "I think you need to see this." He approached, his eyes red and moist from reading the letter. When he saw the photo, his expression changed from excitement to shock. "They knew each other," he murmured. "Eleanor and your mother, they knew each other." Olivia felt her world spin. "But how? Why? Why didn't anyone ever tell me?" Maxwell took a deep breath, holding Eleanor's letter. "Olivia, I think it's time you read this." Eleanor. She knew about everything. With trembling hands, Olivia took the letter and began to read. "My dear Maxwell, if you are reading this, it means that I am no longer there to tell you this story in person. There's so much I need to tell you, so many secrets I've carried around for years, waiting for the right moment to reveal them. First, and most importantly, I've always known about my cousin. Yes, Maxwell. I have a cousin who was given up for adoption as a baby. Her mother, my Aunt Margaret, made what she called the biggest mistake of her life when she was young. She got pregnant by a married man and, fearing scandal, gave the child up for adoption. That child grew up to become the mother of someone very special, someone who, if fate allows, you will meet one day. Her name is Olivia. I know that sounds crazy, but it's the truth. I spent years trying to track down my lost cousin and her daughter. When I finally found them, I decided to keep my distance, fearing that the truth would cause more pain than healing. But now, knowing that my time is short, I realize that the truth needs to be known. The sapphire necklace you gave me on our wedding day, it originally belonged to my grandmother. I left it with Aunt Margaret, with instructions that it should be given to Olivia when the time was right. Maxwell, my love, if you found Olivia, I know it was fate at work. She is family, our family. Please take her in. Help her understand her past, our shared history. And Maxwell, allow yourself to live again, to love again. I know your heart is big enough for that. With all my love, forever, Eleanor." By the time Olivia had finished reading, tears were streaming freely down her face. She looked at Maxwell, seeing her own confusion and emotion reflected in his eyes. "She knew," Olivia whispered. "All this time." Maxwell nodded, moving closer to her. "Eleanor was always extraordinary. Even after she left, she found a way to bring our family together." At that moment, the barriers between them crumbled. Maxwell pulled Olivia into a tight embrace, both of them allowing years of secrets and pent-up emotions to flow freely. When they finally separated, their faces were inches apart. Maxwell gently stroked Olivia's cheek, wiping away a tear. "What do we do now?" Olivia asked, her voice little more than a whisper. Maxwell smiled softly. "We honor Eleanor's wish. We find out more about our history, about her family, and—" He hesitated for a moment. "If you're willing, we explore what's growing between us." Olivia felt her heart race. "I'm willing," she replied, leaning in for a tender kiss full of promise. The days that followed the discovery of Eleanor's letter were a mixture of intense emotions and surprising revelations for Maxwell and Olivia. The Ashworth mansion, once a symbol of mourning and isolation for Maxwell, now pulsed with a new energy, as if the secrets revealed had breathed life into its ancient walls. One sunny morning, Maxwell found Olivia in the garden, sitting on a stone bench, absorbed in reading Margaret's diary. The sun played with the reflections in her hair, and Maxwell felt his heart race at the sight. It was still hard for him to believe how much his life had changed in such a short time. "Good morning," he said softly, sitting down next to her. Find anything interesting?" Olivia looked at him with a sad smile. "Very, Margaret. She suffered so much, Maxwell. Carrying that secret for so many years must have been a terrible burden." Maxwell nodded, putting a comforting arm around Olivia's shoulders. "Sometimes the secrets we keep with the intention of protecting end up causing more pain than if they had been revealed." "She mentions my mother," Olivia continued, her voice shaking with emotion. "She says she watched her from afar, longing to be a part of her life, but always fearing the consequences of the truth." Maxwell took Olivia's hand, intertwining their fingers. "And now, how do you feel knowing all this?" Olivia sighed deeply. "It's complicated. Part of me is hurt that I've been kept in the dark for so long. But another part understands the fear and love that motivated those decisions." She looked at Maxwell, her eyes shining with determination. "But now that I know the truth, I want to know the whole story. I want to understand where I come from." Maxwell smiled, admiring Olivia's strength and resilience. "And I'll be by your side every step of the way," he promised. At that moment, as if the universe wanted to test that promise, Olivia's cell phone rang. It was her adoptive mother. With trembling hands, Olivia answered the call, putting it on speaker so that Maxwell could hear. "Mom," she said, her voice betraying her nervousness. "Olivia, darling." Her mother's voice sounded concerned. "Is everything all right? You haven't been calling and—" Olivia took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "Mom, there's something I need to ask you. Did you know I was adopted?" The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Finally, with a heavy sigh, Olivia's mother answered, "Oh, Olivia, I always knew this day would come. Yes, darling, you were adopted, but that has never, ever diminished the love we feel for you." Silent tears streamed down Olivia's face as she listened to her mother tell the story of how she and her father had received Olivia as a precious gift, how they had decided to wait until she was ready to know the truth. "But how did you know that I found out?" Olivia asked, her voice breaking. There was a pause. "A woman came to us a few months ago. Margaret. She said it was time for the truth to come out. She told us about the necklace, about the Ashworth family. Olivia, darling, I hope you can forgive us for not telling you sooner." Maxwell squeezed Olivia's hand in silent support as she processed this new information. "Mom, I need some time to absorb all of this, but I want you to know that I love you. You're my parents, no matter what." After saying goodbye, with the promise of a long conversation soon, Olivia turned to Maxwell, burying her face in his chest as she sobbed silently. He hugged her tightly, stroking her hair and murmuring words of comfort. When she finally calmed down, Maxwell gently lifted her chin, looking into her eyes. "Olivia, I know this is a lot to process, but I want you to know that you're not alone. You have your adoptive family who love you unconditionally, and now you have me and the connection to Eleanor's family." Olivia nodded, a small smile forming on her lips. "It's strange, isn't it? A few weeks ago, I was just a housekeeper starting a new job. Now I have more family than I ever imagined." Maxwell smiled, leaning down to kiss her softly. "And you have me," he whispered against her lips. "If you want me." Olivia responded by deepening the kiss, wrapping her arms around Maxwell's neck. When they broke apart, they were both panting but smiling. "I guess that answers your question," Olivia said with a twinkle in her eye. That evening, as they dined on the balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and orange, Maxwell and Olivia discussed their next steps. "I want to visit Margaret's grave," Olivia said, absent-mindedly playing with her sapphire necklace, "to thank her for having the courage to start this journey of discovery." Maxwell nodded. "And afterwards, perhaps we could visit her adoptive parents. I think a face-to-face conversation would do everyone good." Olivia smiled, grateful for Maxwell's understanding and support. "Yes, I think it's time to put all the pieces of this family together." As night fell over the Ashworth estate, Maxwell and Olivia remained on the balcony, talking, laughing, and occasionally exchanging tender kisses. The mystery that had initially brought them together had turned into something deeper, more meaningful. And there, under the stars that were beginning to dot the night sky, they both felt that they were on the threshold of a new chapter in their lives. The cemetery was silent that fall morning, the golden leaves falling softly from the surrounding trees. Maxwell and Olivia walked hand in hand between the headstones, their footsteps muffled by the damp grass of the morning dew. Finally, they reached Margaret Winter's grave. It was a simple but elegant headstone with her name engraved on it and the dates of her birth and death. Below, a single phrase, "Love transcends time and secrets." Olivia let out a shaky sigh, squeezing Maxwell's hand for support. He enveloped her in a comforting hug, gently kissing the top of her head. "Would you like a moment alone?" he asked gently. Olivia nodded gratefully. Maxwell pulled away, giving her space, but remaining close, a silent, comforting presence. Kneeling in front of the headstone, Olivia touched the engraved letters of Margaret's name. "Hello, Grandma," she whispered, the words sounding strange but somehow right. I wish I could have met you for real, to have heard your story from your own lips." She paused, taking a deep breath to hold back the tears that threatened to fall. "But I want you to know that I understand. I understand the fear, the pain, the love that motivated your choices. And I forgive you." Olivia took the sapphire necklace off her neck and held it in front of the headstone. "Thank you for this gift, for this connection to my past, my present, and my future. I promise to honor your memory and our family's history." Putting the necklace back on, Olivia stood up, feeling as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Turning to Maxwell, she saw unshed tears in his eyes. "Ready for the next step?" he asked softly. Olivia nodded, entwining her fingers in his. "Yes, we're going to meet my parents." The drive to Olivia's foster parents' house was silent, everyone immersed in their own thoughts. When they finally arrived, Olivia hesitated at the door, her hand hovering over the bell. "What if they hate me for finding out the truth?" she whispered, the fear evident in her voice. Maxwell placed a comforting hand on her back. "They love you, Olivia. Nothing will change that." With a determined nod, Olivia rang the doorbell. Moments later, the door opened, revealing a middle-aged couple with anxious but loving expressions. "Olivia," her adoptive mother, Sarah, whispered, tears already forming in her eyes. Without hesitation, Olivia threw herself into her parents' arms, the three of them merging in an emotional embrace. Maxwell watched the scene with a smile, his heart filling with love and admiration for Olivia and her ability to forgive and love. Hours later, sitting in the Pearsons' living room, cups of tea in hand, the full story finally came out. How Sarah and Robert had longed for a child for years. How the social worker had turned up one day with the news that a baby needed a home. How they had instantly fallen in love with little Olivia. "We always planned to tell you," Robert explained, his voice laced with emotion. "But every year it got harder to find the right words. When Margaret came to us," Sarah continued, "it was as if the past and the present collided. We were afraid of losing you, darling." Olivia squeezed her parents and hands. "You'll never lose me. You're my parents. You always will be. Finding out about my biological origin doesn't change the love I feel for you." Maxwell, who had remained silent until then, finally spoke. "Mr. and Mrs. Pearson, I want you to know that Olivia discovering your connection to my late wife in no way diminishes your role in her life. In fact, it has only increased our admiration for you and the love you gave her." Sarah smiled through her tears, reaching out to take Maxwell's hand. "Thank you, Maxwell. And please call us Sarah and Robert." As the afternoon progressed, the atmosphere in the Pearson home transformed. What began as a tense and emotionally charged meeting became a celebration of family, love, and new connections. Olivia shared stories about her life at Ashworth Manor, the discovery of Margaret's diary and how she and Maxwell had grown closer throughout their journey. Her parents, meanwhile, shared memories of Olivia's childhood, making everyone laugh with stories of their mischief and precious moments. When it was finally time to leave, the farewell hugs were long and full of emotion, but also of hope and promises of frequent visits. In the car, on the way back to the Ashworth mansion, Olivia turned to Maxwell, her eyes shining with a mixture of relief and happiness. "Thank you," she said softly, "for standing by me through all of this, for helping me find my truth and strengthen my family ties." Maxwell took her hand, bringing it to his lips for a gentle kiss. "Always, my love, always." As they drove along the winding road that led back to the mansion, the sun was setting on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. It was as if nature itself was celebrating this new chapter in their lives. Maxwell cast a sidelong glance at Olivia, admiring how the golden light of the sunset illuminated her profile. He knew at that moment that he wanted to spend the rest of his life by her side, building a future together on the foundations of the past they had discovered. Ashworth Manor, which had once been a symbol of mourning and isolation for Maxwell, now represented a new beginning. A home not only for him and Olivia, but for all the family they had brought together, the Pearsons, the memory of Eleanor and Margaret, and anyone else the future might bring into their lives. As the car drove up the long driveway of the estate, Maxwell felt a peace he hadn't experienced for years. He knew that, no matter what the future held, they would face it together, with love, understanding, and the strength of the family bonds they had forged through this incredible journey. A year had passed since that fateful afternoon when Olivia had arrived at Ashworth Manor, innocently wearing the necklace that would trigger a series of events that would change their lives forever. The estate, once gloomy and full of melancholy memories, now pulsed with a new energy. It was a sunny Saturday afternoon, and the mansion's garden was decorated with flowers and ribbons. Elegantly dressed guests were chatting animatedly, their laughter echoing through the fragrant spring air. At the center of it all, holding hands with beaming smiles, were Maxwell and Olivia. "Are you ready?" Maxwell whispered, gently squeezing Olivia's hand. She looked up at him, her eyes shining with love and happiness, more than ever. Together, they turned to face their guests. Maxwell cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. "Friends and family," he began, his voice heavy with emotion. "Olivia and I would like to thank you all for being here today, to celebrate not only our marriage, but also the union of our families." Olivia continued, her gaze scanning the crowd until she found the smiling faces of her adoptive parents. "This past year has been an incredible journey of discovery, forgiveness, and love. We've discovered that family isn't just the one we're born into, but also the one we choose and the one fate presents us with." In the front row, Sarah and Robert Pearson smiled through their tears, their hands intertwined. Next to them, an empty chair with a single white rose symbolized Eleanor's presence, a silent tribute to the woman who, even after her departure, had united so many lives. Maxwell picked up the sapphire necklace resting on Olivia's chest. This necklace, once a symbol of mystery and secrets, now represents the union of our past, present, and future. With a gentle gesture, he removed the necklace from Olivia's neck. To everyone's surprise, he opened it, revealing a secret compartment. From inside, he took out 2 gold rings. "Eleanor always said that this necklace held her most precious treasures," Maxwell explained, his voice laced with emotion. "Now I understand that she didn't just mean the jewelry, but the connections it would create, the love it would bring." Olivia gasped, tears of joy running freely down her face as Maxwell knelt before her. "Olivia Pearson," he said, looking deeply into her eyes, "you taught me that it is possible to love again, that the past does not define our future, but gives us the strength to build it. You brought light back into my life and into this mansion. Would you do me the honor of becoming my wife, of building our own chapter in this story together?" "Yes," Olivia replied without hesitation, her voice overflowing with love. 1,000 times yes. As Maxwell slid the ring onto Olivia's finger, the guests erupted into applause and cheers. Sarah and Robert hugged each other, crying with happiness for the daughter they had raised with so much love. The ceremony that followed was intimate and emotional. Maxwell and Olivia exchanged vows that spoke not only of their love for each other, but also of gratitude for the journey that had brought them there and the families that had supported them. During the reception, as the newlyweds danced their first dance as husband and wife, Maxwell leaned over to whisper in Olivia's ear, "You know, I think Eleanor would be very proud of both of us." Olivia smiled, resting her head on Maxwell's shoulder. "I'm sure she would. And Margaret, too." Later that evening, as the party was drawing to a close, Maxwell and Olivia escaped to Eleanor's office. The room, which had once been an untouched sanctuary of memories, was now a shared space, full of new memories and promises for the future. Olivia approached Eleanor's old desk, where a framed photograph had been placed. In it, Eleanor was smiling radiantly, wearing her sapphire necklace. Next to it, a new photo showed Maxwell and Olivia, equally smiling, wearing the same necklace. "It's amazing how things turned out, isn't it?" Olivia reflected, tracing the outlines of the photos with her fingers. "How a simple object can contain so many stories, so many lives." Maxwell hugged her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "And to think it all started with you showing up here, wearing that necklace?" Olivia turned in his arms, looking deep into his eyes. "You know, as much as I love this necklace and everything it represents, I think it's time we started our own tradition." She took off the necklace and placed it carefully in a small jewelry box on the desk. "One day, we'll tell this story to our children, about how a necklace, a mystery and love brought families together and healed broken hearts." Maxwell smiled, leaning over to kiss her softly, and about how sometimes endings are just new beginnings in disguise. As they left the office hand in hand, ready to begin their life together as husband and wife, Maxwell and Olivia knew that, no matter what the future held, they would face it together, with love, understanding, and the strength of the family bonds they had forged through this incredible journey. Ashworth Manor, once a symbol of loss and loneliness, was now full of promise of a bright future. And somewhere, beyond the veil of time, Eleanor and Margaret smiled, knowing that their acts of love, even if shrouded in secrecy, had finally brought healing and happiness to those they left behind.